Hey, y'all, welcome into another War Rapport Wednesday. Of course, that means our good friend Mike G is stopping by. Y'all, it is March. It is insanity. But we had kind of let's call it like it is. We didn't want that result happening in Neville Arena. Mike, will start right there. An overtime game against Alabama. Alabama puts up 90, and we know when they get to that mark, it favors them one way. Just your overall reaction to that game.
What a game. I felt like that was a Final Four game. That was a game that fans deserved to see in the tournament. These are two of the best teams in the country. Alabama being one of the best scoring teams in the country, the best scoring team in the country. Auburn, still a top, 6 or 7 scoring team in the country. At the end of the day, this game meant more to Alabama than it did to Auburn. If you're Auburn, you had your regular season title already locked up, Rex. You're probably the number 1 overall seed headed into Nashville. You're definitely the number 1 overall seed in the tournament. But you're the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament as well, too. Denver Jones started that game. I was a little shocked to see him go out there. They talked about his injury. But I think that underscores that although this game did mean more to Alabama, both teams wanted to win this game. If you're Bruce Pearl, you wanted the regular season sweep of Alabama. Mark Sears with the dagger at the end. It was, it wasn't the outcome that Auburn fans wanted, but it was a great game to watch. And the energy in the arena was electric. It was everything that you hope for in March.
I know they were never going to get it, but I would advocate for March Madness to be on campuses. It would be too complicated, but it would be amazing to see something like that. Auburn has stubbed their toe the last couple games. Now, again, the resume as a body of work is incredible, being one of the best teams, the best team in the SEC during the regular season. Losing to Alabama this way, does that damage their number 1 overall seed chances?
Possibly. Look, I think that going into that game, it was not even a discussion. Losing your last 2 is always going to bring that back into, the discussion about whether you're the number 1 overall seed or not. Now, you lost to Duke, right? And I think that's the other team that's challenging them for that number 1 overall seed despite, a much weaker schedule. But when it comes down to it, nobody has played more Quad 1 games. Nobody has won more Quad 1 games. Nobody has a better overall body of work than the Auburn Tigers. You haven't lost a game to a team outside the top 25 all year. Look, this was a historic regular season in what was a historic season for the conference as a whole, and it's all we've talked about all season is how good the SEC has been. I think if you win this conference in this year, you should be the number 1 overall seed. So yes, it does maybe bring it into question a little, but most of the experts still agree the Auburn Tigers are the number 1 overall seed, and they haven't done anything to fall off that perch.
The resume is there, y'all. It's undeniable. We have a lot of postseason awards to get to when it comes to Coach of the Year, Player of the Year, because, again, you probably could put any Auburn Tiger you want on any of these all-conference teams. One thing that did stand out in that game, unfortunately, we do have to talk about it. Chad Baker-Mazara gets ejected for an elbow to the back of the head of an Alabama player. Look, Chad does find himself in these positions a lot, unfortunately, that he has a temper. Unfortunately, he gets caught up in physical altercations. It's not the first time he's got ejected from a game. I'm not saying he's a bad human being, because by all accounts, and you've mentioned on the show, he is a phenomenal person, great basketball player. But when he keeps getting caught up in situations like this, is this a problem? Was this a war for the Auburn basketball team?
I think any game that he gets thrown out of is a problem for you. Now, you have another example of a game that was close, and you weren't on the court to help your team at the end of the game. If Chad Baker plays, we don't know that Auburn wins, but certainly we know their chances are better when he is on the court than when he is not on the court. So if you're Bruce Pearl, I do think you continue to counsel this headed into the NCAA tournament and say, look, we need you, and you cannot retaliate. Now, look, the only thing that I don't like about this discussion are people who throw around terms like thug as it pertains.
That's completely unfair.
Yeah, look, anybody calling Chad Baker-Mazara a thug has never met a thug in real life. It's the furthest thing from it. But the crash out, you have to avoid the crash out on the court. And none of us can judge. Look, a lot of us have crashed out for a lot less.
That's fair.
And we didn't get kidney punched before our crash out.
That's also fair.
A lot of you guys are out there crashing out on McDonald's workers and cashiers at the grocery store. But he's got to be able to regulate his emotions in the moment. And that's part of playing sports at a high level. Basketball is a physical game, and in the heat of the moment, it can be tempting to give back a little bit of what they're giving to you. Right. Now, look, if you're Chad Baker-Mazara, you have to know that coaches are going to coach their players to try to get under your skin, to give you that little bit of extra to see if they can get a reaction out of you, because they know when you're gone, they have a better chance of winning. So you got to stay on the court and you got to keep your eyes on the prize if you're Chad Baker-Mazara.
You're a dynamic wing who can score and can defend their best player, because again, you put Baker-Mazara on Sears for that last shot. That last shot becomes a whole lot harder to hit. Sears, again, a phenomenal player, but it's kind of like playing by the Draymond Green rules. You have this reputation, fair and unfair, and you're right. Like, if I have to put my most irritant person on Chad Baker-Mazara to get him kicked out of the game, that's
why not?
Why not?
You know, there was a play during the game where his man scored, and then he came back on defense and just decided, you're not going to do anything this play. And they couldn't get the ball up the court, and it ended up being a turnover. And the energy in the arena was as electric as it had been the whole game when he locked down his man and caused a turnover, just playing lockdown defense. It was insane to watch. That's what he brings to your basketball team, and you need that on the court. It hurt them versus Yale. It hurt them versus Alabama. And Dylan Cardwell, after the loss versus Yale, he came to the postgame with some visible frustration, saying, "This doesn't help us." I'm paraphrasing, but look, we can't do that. So look, he's going to learn. He's a young man. He's learning. I think that Bruce Pearl understands the balance between letting players be themselves, right, and play with that edge, but also trying to rein these things in. And hopefully this is just a non-discussion come tournament time. Absolutely,
because these games are going to be a whole lot more important down the line. But let's talk about these postseason awards. My gosh. Coach of the Year for Bruce Pearl, Player of the Year for Johni Broome, All-Conference team for Denver Jones, All-Conference team for Chad Baker-Mazara. I want to touch on Bruce Pearl because we've seen how the absolute powerhouse he's built. Is this one of his best coaching jobs?
This is his best coaching job. This is his best team. But you got to remember, he built this team. Right. He built this team brick by brick, going to get Chaney Johnson and Denver Jones and Johni Broome from places where they weren't being highly recruited out of high school. And you've got one of the most senior teams in the country, but that's what it takes to make a deep tournament run in March. So if you're Bruce Pearl, this is your best coaching job, but you were playing the long game. You got these guys to come back. You got Johni to come back. And they have a chance for next year to return Denver, Chad, and Chaney, possibly. Look, I think that Chad Baker may be the only one that has the clearest path to returning.
Sure.
The other two, it will depend on the legality of the rulings and how things play out with the NCAA. But you've got to keep your squad together, I think, in today's college basketball to have a shot to win. And that's what Bruce Pearl has done here. So, yes, this is his best coaching job. But this job started a couple of years ago when he got those guys to come here and then continue to develop those guys over the years.
One piece that I've seen also out there is that Johni Broome might just be the best transfer player ever. But for what we know right now, he is the best SEC player of the year. For you, Johni Broome could be the national player of the year. But clearly, do you think head and shoulders he's the best player of the SEC?
I do, and I tweeted this during the game. Win or lose, it was clear to me that he had locked up National Player of the Year. 15 of 28, 34 points, just an insane game. I don't think it mattered that they lost that game. He hit 2 threes, critical threes, to keep Auburn in it when they needed a big shot. And I was thinking it was going to be Miles Kelly taking that 3 at the end, but it was Johni Broome, and they left him open, and he hit the shots. And so you've got to give him his flowers. He is the best player in the country. Adding the 3-point shot to his game last year, I think, is the thing that really pushed him over the edge. Now, he shoots at a 30-something% clip, but for a guy his size, you don't expect him to be able to shoot the 3 the way that he does. And he makes enough of them that you have to respect it.
Absolutely.
And that's today's game. Big men are now shooting mid-range and 3-point shots. And to me, his ability to be able to make that shot, stretch the floor, draw the other big man out of the paint is what makes him the National Player of the Year.
And one person, we've talked about Chad Baker, we've talked about Johni, obviously. One person I did want to touch on, Denver Jones. You have mentioned multiple times here how important he is defensively. All defensive team in the conference, which is, again, he may not get the biggest highlights because he's not throwing down dunks all the time.
Right.
But he is a game changer when he is on his game as a defender. Will he be a key heading into March?
He will. And he wasn't 100% going into the Alabama game. As a matter of fact, I was surprised to see him on the court. But Denver, you're a better team when Denver Jones is on the court. Not only is he the best defensive player on the team alongside Chad Baker-Mazara, but he can shoot lights out and hit big shots when you need it. Look, this is Auburn's best shooting team, I think, ever. They have the ability to hit the 3 at a high clip. That 18-19 team was obviously ridiculous.
Insane.
Yeah, but Denver Jones is a key piece here. It's a senior leadership, and he brings, I think, a stability to that offense that maybe it's a little bit more erratic when Tahad is in. He can hit some really big shots for you, but he's still growing as a player. I think people forget that he's a true freshman. And Denver Jones gives you senior leadership on the court. That experience is something that you can't just create. You have to earn it. Mm-hmm. You have to live it. You know what I mean? You have to experience it. You have to go through it to have the experience that Denver Jones has. And that's something that nobody can take away from him. And that's what makes him one of the best players on this basketball team.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how all these pieces come together because March is here, y'all. It's going to be a lot of fun. On the other side, the Auburn women's basketball team has obviously gone through ups and downs. And we brought you in for a special report when head coach Johnny Harris was fired. One of the things that really stood out in our past conversations, you called it that this recruiting class is obviously going to be very, very different. Falling apart was the term you used. You have a lot of updates. What can you tell us so far about this recruiting class?
Well, we know that Talia Scott has decided to enter the portal. She came to Auburn as the SEC's leading scorer at 22.1 points per game. She played in 3 games this season, took a red shirt, but she averaged 20.3 points per game. Wow. I think if Talia Scott plays this season, Johnny Harris is probably still the coach. But you can't lose 20 points a game and think it's not going to have some kind of effect on your offense. But outside of that, right, you had a lot of seniors graduating. So they were going to have to rebuild this roster at least to some extent. Whoever the new coach is, he's going to clean house at the bottom of the roster, I think. I think he or she is going to get the players that they need in. But you had the number 16 high school recruiting class coming in.
Right. And
so far, we know Nyla Wilson has reopened her commitment. She was the number 26 overall recruit. I think that we're going to continue to get news there. Now, you had Brandy Harrod, who was the number 59 overall recruit in the country, and she has not said one thing or the other. My guess is that when it's all said and done, they're going to be starting from scratch with this recruiting class. So we'll see what the commitment to women's basketball is. To rebuild it, they're going to have to hire a good coach, and they're going to have to put some money into the program. That's just where we're at here. Look at what Kentucky did in a year with their program.
Absolutely.
Put a bunch of money in, and they went from 4-12 to one of the best teams in the conference in one off season. So Auburn basketball, get behind the women's game. And I think that these girls deserve a more solid commitment from the university. Now, if that means getting the coach in that you want to support in that way, okay,
fine, you write the checks.
You've decided to move on from Johnny Harris. Get somebody in here who you will actually support, and because ultimately the student athletes deserve to have the support.
And we know that, again, not every sport has the same resources equally, but when you look at what the men are doing and they're getting all the resources and you're seeing the results, you're packing Neville Arena, the lines around the gym. You can do that, I think, at least to a certain degree with the women. You can improve it.
I will say this. Auburn men's basketball is still under-resourced.
Wow.
Yeah, Bruce Pearl is doing some amazing things with a program. They're near the bottom of the conference in terms of what they're doing as far as NIL is concerned.
Okay, that is blowing my mind at this point.
Bruce has been advocating for a new facility, and he decided. I think there was a decision that we needed more on the NIL side, and so to some extent, I think basketball in general
is underfunded.
Yeah, it definitely needs more support.
All right, y'all. Well, that's absolutely incredible that Bruce is doing this without the resources that I thought he had. Well, hey guys, that'll wrap it up for another War Rapport Wednesday. Mike, before we go, where can people find you?
Find us on all social media platforms at the War Rapport. You can find us on YouTube. Go over there. We're going to be covering the NCAA Tournament and the SEC Tournament live from Nashville and wherever Auburn's going to be playing, as long as they're playing this March. But follow me at Mike Gittens on Twitter, at Mike Gittens _ on Instagram. Look,
I'm going to try and see if I can get a seat with Mike wherever he's going at this point. That's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of great coverage through all of March. You can follow us and follow Mike through all of March, as we'll see if the Auburn Tigers can cut down the nets in April. Hopefully they will. All right, y'all, thank you so much for joining us on this edition of War Rapport Wednesday.